Hello, everyone. We are back again. This is Cureton, senior journalist from XR Today, bringing you the big news show for this month of June. And we have on 5 very special guests for this particular episode. We have first off David Ware. He is a writer and creative producer from Beyond a Mask. He's also doing a lot of great things in the immersive technology space with filmmaking. And then next we have Florian. He is a chapter president for Munich and for the VRARA. So that's 2 people we've got for VRARA for today, which is going to be an amazing conversation. We also have Latta. He is the CEO and founder of, well, I guess we can say it today, STINT, and speaker. He's also a speaker and futurist. He's doing a lot of great things in the immersive space. And then finally, we have Kevin O'Donovan. He is the co-chair of VRARA for the Industrial Metaverse and Digital Twin Committee. So it's a pleasure to have all. Oh, wait, no. And then Rory Greener, and my famous colleague who's doing some great things in reporting on news and media related to immersive technologies for XR Today. He is also joining us today to have a bit into the conversation. So once again, thanks everyone for joining, and let's go ahead and kick off the conversation. All right. Brilliant. So we're going to start with the first thing. We wanted to talk about the first big news where we talked about Improbable and Google and NVIDIA partnering to expand the M2 ecosystem. So I guess we could get some of your first thoughts about this. What did you think about this new solution for expanding the metaverse? Rory, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, I think one of the big takeaways when looking at this story is really the technology stacks that go behind metaverse services or applications within that metaverse banner. I think the 2 big takeaways from that technology stack are the cloud computing infrastructure, as well as just NVIDIA's collaboration generally. I think the 2 things that really show from that piece you sent over was how cloud computing, or Google's cloud computing infrastructure, really helped to solidify the metaverse solution that was being advertised there, as well as the introduction of NVIDIA's real-time 3D engine infrastructure there and support system, all of which is incredibly important to have any form of metaverse success. Maybe not right now because it's all being established, but perhaps in the next few years, and as these services develop, those are going to have real-time 3D support from NVIDIA, Unity, Unreal, those kind of firms, as well as having that cloud computing infrastructure within its technology stack and its offering is just completely vital. And it's good to see, I guess, there be some solid collaboration and partnerships happening there to fully establish that technology stack. So I think it's just great news to see, and great to see that collaboration going forward. I'm sure we're going to see more examples of that.
Brilliant. Yeah, excellent words on that one. And did anyone else want to join in? I think Kevin's shaking his head there, so he's got something he wants to pitch in for that.
As Rory said, this is good news, right? And what I mean by that is everybody understands that whatever this metaverse turns out to be, no one can do it all. And it has to be done in partnership with other people. And to Rory's point, a lot of people go, oh, we need standards and we need USD for defining 3D models. But the background infrastructure in terms of how do you stream this to everybody for inclusivity? It can't be just someone who can afford the latest and greatest 10 grand headset and have a supercomputer in your garage, right? I recently started looking at some of the stuff the Metaverse Standards Forum is up to, and they're looking, the architecture, the comms, the reconfiguring of telco networks, right? There's a lot to come to fruition. So I think it's a good move. Now, it's not easy, right? This will play out over a couple of years, but it's good stuff.
It's not easy. You are completely right. It's a very important because we need this multimodality and interoperability. Super important. Currently, many companies are focused on software-defined whatever, and they completely forget that you can only do software-defined if you have the proper hardware behind. So if we continue doing software-defined for the next 20 years on 20-year-old hardware, it simply will suck. So here, yes, it is important. It's important that NVIDIA is part of this, but let's stay realistic. They don't do it to bring us the best fitting experience ever. They want market shares. And they want, in their own perspective, having some kind of lock-in. This is the metaverse, how we've defined it. This is play with us or leave us. So the pressure from the users, if it's the businesses, if it's the commercial users, is simply we have to stand out and demand. We have to tell them what we want and what we do not want. This simply stays important.
Absolutely. Florian, David, did you want to jump in on that one?
Well, yeah, I think it's important to have this accessibility so that you can join from any device, and that, of course, the scalability that those tech giants can bring to the table. I also think that, you have to be a little bit aware of course, who's behind and what their goals are, let's say, but we also need those tech giants in order to scale the metaverse, and so it's really a two-sided conversation that we have to have, and we need to define what we want the metaverse to be. So, yeah.
For me, I tend to focus more on. Actually, I kind of want to build on what Jay said. Or answer to it. I tend to focus on it's the chicken and the egg, right? You need the hardware to have the software, but you also need the content. An analogy I always use is, why would anyone buy a TV if there's nothing to watch? But it's kind of true. But obviously, you still need a TV that works, and you need incentive for people to get on board. But in answer to the question, my actual main takeaway from this was, like I said, NVIDIA sort of getting, I think Kevin mentioned it, but NVIDIA sort of getting in on the party. But also for me, it seems to be the big companies aligning to rival Meta, which obviously, the actual technology here is, perhaps for massive scale watch parties or Ready Player One kind of technology. At the moment, it all seems, like I said, a sandbox. Everyone's going in lots of different directions and just showing what's possible. And all of this will be vital for the future. We will figure out the right formats and mediums to incorporate all of these elements. And, the computing power is staggering. But like I said, I think it's going to be sort of, big companies making a stake and obviously trying to sort of rival Meta and Apple, perhaps. As people are sort of jostling and figuring out their places. But overall, it's better for all of us, right? Because it still all draws attention to this scene, to the XR scene.
Absolutely. I was just going to interject because you guys made some very interesting points on that. We're now seeing that a lot of the companies realize that the metaverse is about what they can contribute to it. Now, not only are they able to just build interoperability or speak about interoperability, but in order for the metaverse to work, they have to find ways to create that interoperability. So Google contributes one thing, NVIDIA contributes something else, HTC Vive will contribute the hardware, and so on and so on. And now we're seeing that lattice work of different kind of solutions are going to be more important for us to study. So that way we can understand exactly just how to build it in under what capacity. So yeah, great points there. We're going to move on to the next one. We're going to talk a little bit about, let's see here. We talk about Apple Vision Pro. So, of course, this has been the talk of the town for the last few weeks. And, of course, there's a lot to say about it. I've, of course, I've banged on a bit about it over the last few weeks. I have mixed reviews about it for this mixed reality headset. I'm sure that you guys do too. So what are your thoughts on the Vision Pro? We'll just open up the floor for that. We'll go with Jay. You're bursting at the seams.
The thing is, I've read the reviews. We all know. I don't know who of you guys had the opportunity to try on the device, really to play around with it. What became extremely visible is how many loudmouths are out there who have an opinion about something they have not tried, who are predicting. I mean, one of these guys, even a huge metaverse influencer, Sakin, he even started through several chat groups and on LinkedIn this kind of survey. What do you expect? Will it be this and that and so on? I mean, who gives a shit? It's just clickbait. And this continues right now as well. In all of this, you see this separation between, it's Apple, it's evil. I've expected more. And so on. It's the first, I would say, it's not the prototype, but it's the first thing, like the first iPhone. It had no Apple App Store. It was very basic. So here as well, the price, of course, the Quest stuff is cheaper. I mean, they do not do 8K resolution. They do not do this and that. So what do we expect? To buy a VW Golf that behaves like a Mercedes? It's really, everyone who thinks about it has as first to digest. The important step is the overall players in this area will observe very carefully what Apple is doing. So they are setting a benchmark. If we like it or not, it doesn't matter. They have done something. We knew the specs, the rumors, 12 cameras, LiDAR, and so on. Everyone was curious about it. I guess, therefore, everyone was even waiting till Apple announces something and has not shown what they are building in their garage. So here, now this big surprise came. We have to be very mindful about it. It's interesting, for example, this one thing. Of course, I do not need my eyes to be seen, whatever. This is for me a little bit creepy. As long I cannot, let's say, change the outcome, so have some kind of demonic eyes or whatever, I don't give a damn. If I can turn it off, I will turn it off. The thing is just the field of view is impressive. What I've seen, what has been demonstrated. I've not tried it. What is an idea, what I liked, for example, on my X-Style as well. I do not need controllers. I can use my hands. An improvement would be if you can take the tool that you need to use and it will be simply embedded into the visualization. So if you, let's say, play a virtual tennis match, you simply take your tennis racket and play with it. You don't need to buy anything else. This would be super cool. And one thing that is something that barely someone talks about it is this capability to record 3D videos. This is something, birthday parties and so on. I mean, in my recent time, I lost many relatives. I wish I would have this capability. Because right now, I just have my photographs. So I might use some algorithms to bring them into life, which is simply a completely new quality. This is something, a small feature that might be very, very interesting. My takeaway.
Good words on that one. Yeah, definitely. Sorry for your losses as well. I know Paul had to deal with that, especially around the COVID-19 era. So hopefully with this new Arcturus variant, we're not going to have to see a resurgence on that one as well, because I don't know, we're going to continue to monitor that. Yeah, anyone else wanted to jump on that? I know Florian, well, David, go for it.
If I may, there's a few points that Jay mentioned to sort of pick up on, which, I mean, yeah, obviously the final point of recording 3D memories, I think is brilliant. It's the Black Mirror episode, isn't it? Come alive. Obviously, that takes the dark take a bit, but fantastic technology. But I think one of the key takeaways from this, and I think Apple's plan, especially with the price point, is that it's not about this headset. It's about a couple of generations' time. Once everyone's jumped on board, everyone's obviously going to be ripping apart everybody else's technology, figuring it out. And because the one thing I would argue, despite all the media and circus being about the debate and the left and the right of everything, it's everyone's bringing attention to this. You know, we've taken the title back off of AI, and it's now gone back to XR a little bit because of Apple having joined in. Obviously, we all know that there's going to be combinations of both down the line. But as I said, it's all about the future. everyone's working together, making their standpoints, as we said earlier, towards the future goals, the future headsets. I mean, I read earlier, someone sort of talking about how Apple's focusing on sexy, and someone was like, well, for $3,500, it better be a sexy. And I'm like, but it's not, is it? Let's be honest, none of the headsets are sexy. You're walking around with a giant thing still on your head, not that different from where it was 20 years ago. But I mean, again, you look at, I guarantee 10 years in the future from now, you're going to have either sunglasses or you're going to have some sort of eyebrow implant that will be XR, or contact lenses, which, people have already been working on. But you need these steps. People are impatient. You need these steps to get to that point. And you need, again, I'll always hammer on the point. I'm personally not the tech guy, the hardware side of it. I'm all about content. And again, you still need that. You still need the content. You need the programs. And I have complete respect for all the hardware side of it. But you need both. You need to have things to do. You need to have software that's targeted towards businesses to get businesses on board, as well as entertainment, which is Meta's primary focus at the moment. And then Apple, presumably with this price tag, it looks like they're doing a little bit of both. But again, I still think personally that their game plan is it's the advertisement, and it's getting the early developers on board so that they're in the market to then make it Apple versus Meta, and kind of everyone else has to jump on board in the same way that it's like Android versus iOS or whatever.
If I may add, I'm not an Apple fanboy, but I will give them huge credit for this, right? From their reframing of what we're up to, and also the technical specs, if they get it working. Now, I haven't tried it, but if I may, they don't talk about a headset. They talk about spatial computing. And they don't talk about XR, VR, whatever, right? So the whole concept of spatial computing, and the concept of, as a consumer, I can create 3D memories of my birth, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, we need to see the stuff working. If they get, the technical specs, I've seen a lot of people saying, everything they've done, we've done that 5-10 years ago. To be quite honest, yes, but not with this level of advanced technology or the amount of sensors. If they can get, with the new chip, if they can get as close to zero latency, and the finger thing working in real time, like, that changes the game, right? We all can do that today with the headsets we have, but there's lag, and it's, clicking on this thing is not working, whatever. If they live up to the technical specs, then this thing is very interesting. But they still need to deliver this puppy, right? And in terms of the price tag, it'll be aspirational for most consumers. But like, if you're off in the industry world today, a HoloLens or a Magic Leap, same price range. So, I watch this space. So I think they deserve great credit. They've changed the goalposts. We'll see how it plays out, but they got to deliver. But it certainly brought it back into the public domain that, this stuff is cool. Right? So, positive.
Yeah, I agree, Kevin and David and Jay, on your opinion. I also think that, if I may add, it's not the breakthrough yet that it's the whole industry expected, but it's certainly a huge step in the right direction, and has a lot of potential to become a spatial computing platform that we can build on. Yeah. It's certainly not yet social, which made me a little bit surprised that Disney was on board, because I don't think that families will, buy the device as a family and then watch Disney exactly together. But it will get there, and we've seen these kind of viewing experiences on other headsets before. So it's just the price tag that is currently the limiting. And that's because they put in so much sensors and other tech
Well, I was going to actually pose a question to Florian and Roy, actually, because both of you tend to focus a lot on, hand and eye tracking. And I think that was one of the things that the Apple Vision Pro kind of makes a leap into, is the movement away from controllers to controllerless, human-computer interfaces. So, Florian, with your speciality in that, I wanted to ask you, what do you think about Apple adapting this approach to headset controlling? And do you think it's going to be good long term, especially for like other use cases that would be more enterprise focused?
Right. I think having a headset without controllers is a great way forward, because it allows the developers to think about all these natural interactions that we have using our hands and vision and movement. I don't want to put on the headset and be sitting around. I want to move around this large space that I might have, and especially in enterprise setups, walking through a digital twin and looking at the production line. I don't want to have the controllers in my hand and to look for them. I really want to grab and interact with the things as natural as possible with my voice. I think it is a really big step into the spatial aspect of not being stationary. And we had a similar issue at my previous startup called Holodeck VR. It's now called Spree Interactive, but we didn't have any controllers, but we wanted people to move around. So the interaction was the other person, the space that you were in. And I hope that all these spatial technologies going forward will really make us interact as natural as possible with our environments.
One additional thing is that the whole UI for controller-less interaction needs to change. We do not need floating sticky notes or some kind of virtual keyboard. It needs to be more like a magician that you open up and then you have your stuff where you simply choose out of. One lesson, especially from the HoloLens disaster in the defense sector, was that this hand interaction does not work. In any kind of job, you develop a specific sign language, because you have to interact with your coworkers. In the military sector, it's even far more. And when you are then standing there and try to tilt something and rotate and zoom in, and the other guys are looking at you like, what do you want me to proceed, to go, to hide? What is it? So this kind of smartification of these devices needs to come, that they are really adapting on your specific use case, that they do not interact with your regular natural communication, and that this UI becomes something completely different, maybe even individual. If David needs something different than Kevin, than Florian, Rory, it needs to happen. So if I prefer, let's say, a floating fireball that brings me all the options, and you want something dizzly-dazzly, it should be. It's our choice.
If I may, Jay, it wasn't that the other guys were looking at you. The other guys were shooting at you. as you're trying to figure out, and your headset lit up, so you might as well have a torch over your head. So I look, that's a pretty extreme use case, but I agree. Whether it was a Rory or Florian, whatever, said this is version like 0.1, right? Let's see where this goes. But again, if they can crack that hardly any latency or imperceptible and accurate gesture control, oh man, that changes things, right?
And maybe I can also add that I want to say, without controllers, you open the space to a lot of people who are not used to having controllers as well. It's really the mass adoption that, all ages and can use the headset with gestures more than with controllers, I think. Yeah. I think it's a smart move.
I think that's a good point by Florian. I actually just had a screening of our virtual reality short film a couple of nights ago. And it's interesting because we had guests of all ages. And yeah, that's actually a really good point. A lot of them had no idea how to use a controller, even some of the younger generations. So again, what we're talking about here really is like, you've got the minority to use films, because obviously that's how I roll. But like Minority Report technology, where you're interfacing with an AR, MR screen in front of you. And I completely agree with Jay's point that a keyboard is stupid. Like, why would you have that in VR to still be, or AR to still be typing? Like, that makes no sense. yes, I think developers would have a difficult time getting people to understand how to create their own shortcuts. Again, developers and people that are more advanced technologically, absolutely. But again, it depends on the audience that you're targeting. If you're targeting obviously the mass consumer audience, then obviously designers and developers are going to have to pick something that is most universal. And obviously the ideal is to get to the Jarvis technology from Iron Man, where it's some combination of AI. Plus, you look at the eye tracking technology that's starting to come out and starting to actually take place. Now, obviously, a point I keep making to people I speak to is, what if you're watching a film and then the characters within the film, it's a passive medium, but you're looking away and not paying attention to the story, but the characters pick up on that because of the eye tracking, and then they respond accordingly. Now that's amazing. That would be next gen. And then if you do that with the interface as well, perhaps, so whether you're an engineer and you're designing an engine or whatever, but the bits you're looking at, the computer senses and it enlarges it or whatever. There's a million ways. It's just going to take time to play with and figure out the best ones, as well as obviously actually making it happen.
Can you imagine watching a movie and Arnold Schwarzenegger turns out, "Oi, look at me, this is important"? That would be scary.
Actually, I can. Well, look at where the technology is going at the moment. Like the AI stuff. Well, you had the girl that like sold her likeness or replicated her likeness within AI, and obviously just go. But hell, if that's already happening. Yeah, no, it's not that long. I don't think it's that far away until we're doing that with movies, and that's what I'm pushing for.
Definitely. I mean, this kind of interaction, what is right now being explored. I mean, it started with volumetric movies, when you can simply go around the character and imagine that you can simply see it from the director's perspective. When you can walk around, if the movie is boring, you simply watch the butterflies. Then, of course, Schwarzenegger would turn back to you and start swearing in Austrian, like, "Hey, sucker, come on, here plays the music," right? But it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I was looking at with the partnerships that they had was Unity and with Disney. Now, Disney is effectively becoming a metaverse company. They're now exploring that as a medium, and I think a lot of other companies are doing the same. So the empirical data that they collect from simple things, the way people interact with content, like what David was speaking about, and also the way people use their headsets. A lot of this data is going to create the new type of experiences that are going to allow people to interact with new realities. So I think Unity and Disney have the upper hand on this one, forming this partnership with Apple. If that, when people start to use, these next gen type of hand and eye tracking technologies. And the same is going to be for, the MetaQuest 3. We're going to see how that's going to play out in the near future as well. Rory, I was going to ask you, what were your thoughts on that specifically? And also, is this the type of headset that you see that you would like use on a regular basis? Like, what are the use cases for this?
Well, I think it really follows on from what we're talking about, the Apple Vision Pro. And I think it really comes down to a sense of what David said a few questions ago. What's the point of having a television if there's nothing to watch? I think it's really, Meta have talked about some of the previous applications are all going forward into the new MetaQuest 3. And they're obviously going to have to support hand tracking, eye tracking, and perhaps some of the more mixed reality stuff that's coming from the OS that's running that. And I think alongside Apple's Vision Pro headset, that all of these companies are doing a fantastic job at creating a developer space and creating resources so that people can either port over or create new applications for these headsets. You're seeing it with Rec Room being ported over to the Apple Vision Pro. But I think something that's quite interesting is really that split between what how Meta are going forward with their vision and how Apple are going forward with theirs, where there almost feels like you've got a enterprise use case focus on one side and a consumer focus on the other. I don't think it's that black and white or that clear, because people are perhaps saying at the moment Apple's Vision Pro is the enterprise and the workplace one. I think that isn't fully true, because you're seeing Unity help port over gaming applications, very basic, but they're obviously clearly developing a very easy to use, perhaps like digital notepad more than anything, and then they're expanding those use cases. I think Meta are probably going to do the same, but they're coming from more of a gaming consumer focus, and then perhaps trying to expand their use cases more so, because we're really seeing Meta focus not on the enterprise and not on workplace or social features as much as they are focused on new gaming products. Because I think you've seen things like Workrooms and some of the Horizon and the MetaQuest Pro initiatives not quite hit the mark. So I think Meta are very obviously trying to refocus their brand as a consumer, maybe not specifically just gaming, but a consumer experience or consumer immersive experience focused product, and to support those use cases, while the Vision Pro, on the other hand, are perhaps hitting those more enterprise and work-based use cases. But I just don't think it's that black and white. I don't think it's that split down the middle, because there's also a bunch of other really, really good headset manufacturers out there, all leading the space. We don't specifically know which one of these firms are going to lead in any of these use cases either. So I think it's still such early days with all of these technologies. So I think it's a wide breadth, but I don't think we're going to see them overlap, at least in these initial stages.
Can I make two quick comments to Rory's point on Apple in the enterprise? So Meta in the enterprise, I'll be honest, in my world, oil and gas and industrial, it was very hard to get someone to go use a Meta account to log into their corporate something, right? It was, trust me, tough. Apple doesn't have that as much. Now, again, we need to see what the implementation is like in device management, whatever. But people use iPads and Macs and iPhones in business today. And the IT departments go, yep, that's fine, we know how to manage them. So to Rory's point, watch that space. I was at a chat recently and someone was on about, well, Disney, great. But look, Disney shut down their Metaverse group. So what the thing? And my point to them was like, it's kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. It's like sustainability. Every company went off and created a head of sustainability. So everyone else in the rest of the company went to sustainability. That's their job, nothing to do with me. And then everyone figured out that, oh, hey, it's got everything to do with me, every single one of us. So that focus. So to me, having a metaverse group in a company is kind of doomed to failure. Metaverse, enabling or using metaverse technology has to be something part of everyone's day job, and think about it from day one. Design in. So my point is that Disney getting rid of their metaverse thing, but now kind of hammering down that we're going to do this across everything, that's the way to go, right? So I think this is very interesting to see how it plays out.
Exactly. Sorry, Kevin. It's with this chief metaverse officers, it was just this one fly that had to die immediately, because we don't have chief internet officers. It's bullshit. It's simply the new way of business. I mean, I remember when I've joined a publishing company, I've been in the new media thing. Oh, seriously? We are emailing, we are web browsing, and it's new media? So it's a transition, and same with metaverse. It's simply a new way, or it's a slightly different way. We will even not have the chief spatial computing officers. If someone does it, then they've not understood what it is about. So this aggregation, put it into the streams where is the responsibility, is simply the natural thing. When it comes into meta thinking, I'm not a fan of Zuck's whatever. He lives in his own bubble. There were some comments like if he's envious and so on from the media, yada yada. I do not think that he thinks in this way. He might not understand why everyone loves the others more and not him. So it's some kind of social disability, whatever. Even Zuck will sooner or later understand that he needs to open up for others, to become interoperable and multimodal, not to stay within his own soup. Apple will have to learn it as well. So the metaverse, the pure definition of the metaverse is it's a connecting layer between different verses. And we will not have to decide, do I want just to be the Meta fanboy, the Apple fanboy, the HTC fanboy? I will simply use these devices as the right tool for the task that I need. When I will go out, I will have just some kind of sleek glasses, maybe contact lenses, whatever. When I'm really deep diving into some kind of specific use case, let's say in my private jet flying somewhere around, hopefully it will be then with windowless, then I will have one of these heavier headsets because it will simply give me the best interpretation what I need to do my job right now. So it will be a huge variety of these tool sets. And Metaverse, the real Metaverse, multimodal, interoperable, that has to connect all of these different tools with the content and make it truly that if I use it on my smartphone, on the laptop, and then of course as well in some kind of headset, it will not matter. It's just what you need, when you need, how you need it.
I just want to follow up on what Kevin and Jay just said there as well. Oh, sorry. Just quickly, I just wanted to say, talking about metaverse officials internally in the workplace, I think it's really important not to take away not just the responsibility, but the consideration we have towards IT teams in the enterprise. They're the ones who are going to have to implement and deploy all of this technology. And now we're replacing them with a metaverse officer. I think we should have a bit more respect on the teams who are putting out and helping to distribute this, not just in the workplace, but probably otherwise as well. But David, please go on. I just wanted to add that note.
That's a good point. And I think hopefully it will create more jobs as people start to actually understand what's going on. But again, as we've said over and over, it's all in its infancy still, and it has been for 20 years, but now it's starting to really steamroller. But too much too pressed too soon, which is why, again, there's been lots of layoffs, in many areas, because that's how society works. But I want to build on what Jay said and something that was said earlier. That again, it's actually something I said earlier. It's all about control. It's all about politics. The way the system works, the way that capitalism works. Like, we here may all be idealists in terms of the metaverse and metaverses and everything working together, which is how it hopefully will be and should be. But the system currently is capitalist, which is big companies fighting for control. So obviously Zuckerberg and Meta have spent billions, as is widely reported, on developing the tech, and they are currently the big dog, which, as Jay said, maybe doesn't know why everyone doesn't like them, whatever. And I think it's because they're the big dog. And it's a completely relevant point that Apple need to also learn to share. Like, the analogy would be Android and iOS, right? Like, all the big phone developers pretty much went Android, except Apple, and suddenly it's kind of those two systems. Again, something I said earlier was that it always seems to be brought about to a left and right because the way the system wants is to create debate. And therefore it narrows everything down to two systems: PlayStation, Xbox. What about Nintendo? It's or PC or Mac, but you've got Valve, you've got HTC, you've got these other headsets and these other developers, as we said. But I wonder what's going to happen as to whether they will all end up being incorporated into one. And the same within the metaverse. People still don't know what the vision is because everyone's got different visions of it, which then is part of the reason why there's not mass adoption, because no one can still really label it. And we have to be able to label things because that's how people have been trained to work.
The thing here is that when we are hiring dedicated metaverse departments, like what we had before, there was one department that was just focused on virtual reality. Then you have to constantly justify your budget. If they would be a group of specialists within the IT department so that everyone can talk to each other and then work together on these ideas, it would have a completely different momentum. Right now, and therefore we have these layoffs. Oh, we have this metaverse department. We have created some kind of, you can smile in front of your virtual car and take virtual photos. I mean, come on, what bullshit. Of course, everyone will ask, and this is why you've spent 1.5 million? We close down, we take away the budget, we close down, we fire you. And if this is how we do the way, then yes, sorry.
I know of one large industrial company right now, and like for any IT, as Rory mentioned, the IT department will come in and say, you want to, I don't care what you're doing, what business, blah, blah. Here are some base criteria. Has to have APIs, has to be open within reason. Can we put in the cloud? Cybersecurity, tick all these boxes. They're starting to add, is there a spatial computing element? Have you considered it? Right? It's not saying it has to be on a MetaQuest, or it has to be this, or it has to be whatever. But it's like, this is you have to answer this question. The answer might be nothing for now, but we will in 3 years. Fine, but whatever. But this is the thinking, right? So then Metaverse just becomes, it's just part of the, we don't talk about HTML anymore. We shouldn't. We shouldn't talk about blockchain either, right? It's just an enabling technology under the covers. So anyway, we need to move on.
Yeah, I mean, you guys raised some amazing points about it, because, one of the things I've been speaking a lot about with the Apple, Vision Pro, is that it looks nice, it functions nice, but how are they going to create real use cases with this? With number one, we all know how Apple has kind of functioned as a company over the last couple of decades. When it came to the kind of technologies they made, it's always been proprietary, closed source. So when it comes to deploying things with IT departments, or when it comes to, developing different apps for these types of things, I want to see the level of support that they offer for that, and then also how they're going to incorporate it into the broader metaverse. Because the problem is that I think Apple functions way too much in its own kind of closed proprietary bubble, and this isn't going to fly in the metaverse. We have to create solutions that are going to lead to the greater adoption of different technologies that will be interoperable across different platforms. And if Apple is unwilling to do that, no matter how nice this product is going to be, it's going to fail. And it's going to fail because they had their own little moat, and they filled their moat with alligators, and they said, okay, you only get access to it, if you're an Apple fanboy, and then you go and you get to go into the castle. Whereas, despite all of the shortcomings and the failings of Meta, I do think that at least they took the steps to join the Metaverse Standards Forum. They took the steps to join the XR Association. They took the steps to, work with different people at, the level of being able to include APIs into the headset and to build that interoperability. And they have communicated that they said they wanted an open and interoperable metaverse. Nick Clegg has said that multiple times. So I want Apple to adopt that kind of language, and then that kind of platform where they say, we are open to work with the global metaverse industry. So that way they can start building these solutions that are going to work best for all. Unity, Disney, Adobe, I think those were great partnerships. I want to see them do a bit more on being able to allow their solutions to work with the greater industry at whole. I don't want Apple to remain 15% of all of the different, operating systems. Because if you look at the different usages of the operating systems across the world, in 2023 May, I think they reported that you had Windows and Android. Those are the top ones. And it's that way for a reason, because they have been communicating these things for a while, that they're going to keep themselves open. Android is open source. It's based on the open source project, Android open source project. And so these are going to be the things that help speed up, adoption rates. And so that's just what I want to say about Apple in that regard. Great piece of kit, probably a bad execution if they're not careful. Yeah. Anything else from anyone else before we wrap up for today?
Well, if I may, one of the other topics, and again, I thought it was clever from Facebook, or from Meta, Zuck, Jay's friend, announcing the MetaQuest 3, on the Friday before the whatever, right? Trying to steal a bit of thunder. Classic guerrilla marketing. Fair play to them. And it's kind of apples and oranges. But again, my personal opinion is that the more people that can see the art of the possible with VR, XR, whatever, and I've tried the Quest Pro. That's a good piece of kit. If the Quest 3, I'm a Quest 2 user. If the Quest 3 has some of the specs of the Pro at $499, it just makes it more accessible. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Does all the challenges that Meta have and in the end, blah, blah, don't go away. But hey, look, the more people that can see the art of the possible, I think the faster people will go, maybe it's not ready for prime time just yet, but 2 years' time, we'll see what happens,
I think it's just to follow from that. I think it's important to note, just with the, you mentioned using a MetaQuest Pro and using some of these mixed reality devices, they are incredibly sophisticated, yes, flawed, but they are really good bits of kit. And again, going to what David said about the lack of, TV channels on the set, I think it's the exact same argument there. Incredibly powerful, incredibly impressive pieces of kit. It's just how do we leverage them in a way that's accessible, affordable, and can actually, for enterprise, create a good return on investment, because the technology's there. It's very impressive. It's just how do we leverage that now?
Yeah, let's just hope people stop trying to monopolize it and start sharing. Like Half-Life Alyx as an example of a game, right? Everyone knows of it because wow, and that's a few years old now, and yet we still don't have. I can't think of anything that rivals it yet, even now, and it's incredibly hard to create something of that level, and that showed it could be done, but you can't get it. I don't think you can get it on the Meta platform. It's because it's Steam, right? So when people start being able to share to then bring more people in, then fine. It's changing the mindsets. I think we'll see if it happens.
It's also a commercial thing, right? If I'm a game developer, do I spend X amount of time for 20 million headsets or 200 billion PCs, right? So it's the chicken and the egg. Someone mentioned that earlier. But look, I think it's been a good 6 months already for certainly in the industrial metaverse world. So this stuff isn't going away, right? And we'll probably stop talking about the metaverse in a couple of years. We'll just talk about this is normal.
And hopefully less about hardware, but also about the experiences that we create. The more people get the hardware out there.
Definitely. Well, yeah. So great. I guess that's it pretty much for today. It was an amazing discussion. I wish we could take it a bit further. Maybe we'll do that in like a subsequent, episode of the Big News Show. But yeah, once again, name's Cureton, senior journalist for XR Today. We've had on David Ware, Florian Carls, Jay Latta, Kevin O'Donovan, and Rory Greener. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining for today. It's been a fantastic conversation. And until next time, and for the audience here, if you'd like to see more like this, please join the Big News Show at the Big News again, Big News hashtag at Twitter and LinkedIn. And please be sure to follow all of our discussions and updates on these two platforms. That way you can catch all the great news that we're putting out there and all the wonderful people that we've been speaking to across the XR industry. So once again, thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, ciao, ciao.